A dramatic weather pattern flip is taking place across the United States, and it's about to drive a much more active stretch of weather as we head deeper into February. After days of extreme cold along the East Coast, a powerful ridge is building across the central United States, allowing historically warm air to surge north and fundamentally change the setup going forward. As this warm air expands east, a sharp temperature boundary will set up across the middle of the country, and that boundary is where things get very interesting. Multiple storms are expected to form along this boundary, increasing the chances for heavy snow and severe weather as we approach the middle of February. One storm signal that is really standing out to me is right around Valentine's Day, where model guidance continues to suggest a developing low-pressure system that could bring a classic split impact, with the potential for severe weather on the warm side and heavy snow on the cold side, depending on where that boundary ultimately sets up. I want to start today's forecast with something very fascinating that happened yesterday on Lake Erie. We have a massive ice crack that has developed all across central Lake Erie, just off to the north of Cleveland, Ohio. This right here is mostly because of our temperature changes and also the wind that has been happening in these areas over the last few days. These are very common, especially when our ice coverage is very high. Right now in Lake Erie, the ice coverage is about 95%. It's actually at very high levels for this time of the year. And this right here is going to continue to happen, which could make it dangerous. If you are on the ice at all, definitely be very cautious because this is going to be common. A major weather pattern flip is about to happen across the United States. For those along the East Coast, do you guys remember when it was very cold? And even for many of you right now, it is still below average. Well, that's all about to change, because right now we have a very large ridge that is building all across the Great Plains. What this is doing is building much warmer air, and for some areas today, we are actually going to have record-breaking heat as far north as Iowa, South Dakota, and Nebraska. These are areas that could have temperatures in the 70s today. We're in February. This hardly ever happens where we have 70-degree high temperatures in areas like Iowa, including Des Moines. Eventually, as we go into Tuesday into Wednesday, that heat wave is going to start to diminish across the northern plains, as a relatively weak cold front is going to make its way across Kansas, Oklahoma, back up into Wisconsin. On the flip side, on Tuesday, we will have well above average temperatures all across the Northeast, the Ohio Valley, and back into Texas. And then on Wednesday, this storm system that's going to be located back over in Canada will make its way into New England, and that will allow for below-average temperatures to surge into parts of the mid-Atlantic. And that cold front will stretch all the way down into Texas. This storm system is going to be relatively weak for most of the United States. Really, the biggest change will be the temperatures over the next 5 to 7 days. By the end of the week, we are going to see some colder air once again along the East Coast. Warm air will continue all across the Great Plains, and then along the West Coast, we'll have below-average temperatures for areas like California, Oregon, and Washington. What's going to be very interesting during this week is that we will have a lot more moisture back over near the Rockies, and that should promote some significant mountain snow. That isn't really something that we've seen a whole lot of this winter. So for some of you, especially near the Rockies, there's some good snow chances coming up by next weekend and eventually into early next week. Right around the middle of February, it doesn't look like this warm air is going to be going anywhere anytime soon. And this could suppress major winter storms for at least some period of time here across the United States. At least for those across the southern plains and the southeast. I don't see any southern winter storms on the horizon yet, but I do think sometime around or just after February 15th, we will see another major Arctic blast. It's only a matter of time until the polar vortex unleashes cold air once again. One of the craziest things about this weather pattern is that temperatures will be as high as 40 degrees above average today across areas like Iowa, Kansas, and even back into Oklahoma. This will be where the most significant heat is going to build. We will have a cold front Tuesday and Wednesday, but it's not going to be that significant because temperatures will only drop by about maybe 10 to 20 degrees. And they're going to warm right back up as we go into Thursday into Friday, all across the Great Plains. For those over in the Midwest, anywhere over in the Ohio Valley and the Northeast, some of these areas will be dealing with below-average temperatures on and off throughout the week. So, it's going to be kind of a variable mix when it comes to our temperatures in these areas, which might help to promote some isolated snow chances during the middle and end of this week. It looks like it will stay cold, though, for anywhere in the Northeast as we go into Saturday and Sunday. And as of right now, it does not look like we have any major Arctic blasts on the immediate horizon. I do think that'll change, though, just after February 15th. You might think it's March when we're looking at this map. These are the high temperatures for today, February 9th. It is going to be in the mid to upper 60s and low to mid 70s in areas like Kansas and Nebraska. Kansas City will be 67. Over in southwestern Kansas, 77 degrees. I cannot explain how crazy that is for this time of the year. Even back over into Tennessee, where we had an ice storm a couple of weeks ago, upwards of 65 degrees today. Just incredible weather. Again, we're talking almost like spring-like conditions. The groundhog doesn't even matter right now. I mean, we're really talking about a really crazy weather pattern flip right now. By Tuesday, those temperatures will drop. A cold front will move through. So most of Kansas will be back in the 50s for highs tomorrow. Wednesday and Thursday, any sort of heat is mainly going to be confined to the Gulf Coast. Thursday and Friday, the warm air will once again build across the central and southern plains. Areas like Dallas and Houston could easily go over 80 degrees by Friday, which is going to make it feel as if we are in April. So definitely something that we'll be keeping an eye on. There's even a possibility with how warm it's going to be, we could see a severe weather setup in parts of the southern plains and even beyond next weekend. That heat wave is likely not going to back off, as temperatures could still be in the 50s and 60s as far north as Montana, all the way back down into Texas. Over the next 7 days, we are going to have a few different storm systems that'll be impacting the United States. The first one is actually going to be happening today into tomorrow, mainly across the Pacific Northwest, where we do have some light to moderate snowfall going into higher elevations. This is great news for those that are skiers. We also have a large Alberta clipper that is developing right now north of Minnesota. And this is expected to bring some heavier snowfall tomorrow to areas like the Upper Peninsula of Michigan, and then back into the Northeast, where moderate to heavy snowfall is likely, especially on Tuesday and early Wednesday. If you're in New England, even near New York City, there will be some wintry precipitation. We could see a little mix, maybe even a little bit of freezing rain if you're back over in New Jersey, eastern Pennsylvania, and southern New York. The good news is that any sort of ice accumulation that does happen is not going to be enough to really cause power outages. However, there could be some slick spots on the roadways. By Wednesday morning, that Alberta clipper will shift offshore. There will still be some leftover snowfall for areas like the Appalachian Mountains and northern New England. And then, eventually, as we go into late Wednesday and Thursday, we'll also have a large area of moisture back over in the Rockies and along the west coast. So, some heavier snowfall will be impacting the higher elevations once again. That's great news for those that are skiers. We'll continue to have some lingering snowfall across the Northeast. Thursday is when we're expecting to see that boundary form here across parts of the Central Plains and back into the Southeast. This will be kind of our training line of where storms are going to try to set up as we go into the later half of this week and also the weekend. We are expecting at least a weaker low-pressure system to develop on Thursday and Friday across Kansas and Oklahoma. And despite this not looking like anything significant right now on Friday, it will at least bring the possibility of some snow showers to parts of the Midwest and some showers and even thunderstorms across the Deep South on Friday. That could bring the return of some isolated severe weather sometime around Friday or Saturday. Eventually by Saturday and Sunday, though, is when things should get a little bit more organized, as we will have more moisture coming out of the Pacific and the Gulf, and we'll have an elongated area of showers and thunderstorms, Perhaps a little bit of severe weather being possible on Saturday, especially with how hot it's going to be and all the moisture that we are going to have in place. On the other hand, we also have a large area of rain and snow that'll be impacting the Pacific Northwest. That is an atmospheric river event that is going to dump a lot of snow in a pretty short period of time in the higher elevations. On Saturday and early Sunday, this storm system will continue across the southeast and along the east coast. It's a big question mark whether this will bring a whole lot of snow or not. For right now, it looks like it's just going to be very warm this week in these areas. So, I do think severe weather, storms, and just normal rain for a lot of you will be the biggest concern here as we go into next weekend across the mid-Atlantic and the southeast. Maybe a little bit of snow back over in the northeast. Once we go beyond February 15th is when things could get a lot more interesting in the United States. Right now, the GFS model shows a massive winter storm around this time period, but again, this is something that will definitely change between now and then. I do think we'll at least see some Arctic air, probably a much larger storm system around this time period. So, definitely something that we'll be keeping an eye on. But generally speaking, over the next 7 days or so, things are going to remain at least somewhat quiet for most of the United States when it comes to large winter storms. We should continue to see a lot of rain, especially a lot of snow if you're back over in the Rockies and along the West Coast, and even back over in New England. For those that love snow, you need to be in the Northeast because we already have about a foot of snow on the ground in most of New England. And we're about to get another 3 to 6 inches on top of that for most of central and northern New England, and also upstate New York, and maybe a couple of inches if you're back over near Buffalo and northwestern Pennsylvania. So, a good shot of snow is on the way here as we head into Tuesday and Wednesday. If you're looking for some big snowfall over the next 7 to 10 days, the odds are not great. Unless you're along the West Coast and the Rockies, or back over in the Northeast. Because between now and February 18th, the odds are very low for most of the Central Plains back into the Southeast as that heat wave builds. But for those in New England, we're expecting a good amount of snowfall here on Tuesday and Wednesday. And then anywhere west and along the Rockies, we are anticipating a lot of mountainous snowfall, which will definitely be good news for those that are skiers. The weather patterns we're seeing right now represent a dramatic shift that will fundamentally change conditions across much of the United States. This temperature flip is happening in real time and will create the setup for significant weather events as we move through the middle of February. The contrast between record warmth across the Central Plains and continued cold in the Northeast will serve as the battleground for storm development in the coming weeks. What makes this pattern particularly noteworthy is the extreme nature of the temperature departures from normal. When we see 40-degree above average temperatures in February across the Great Plains, we're looking at a pattern that can drive significant atmospheric instability. This instability, combined with the sharp temperature gradients that will develop, creates conditions favorable for both severe weather outbreaks and significant winter storms along the boundary zones. The implications of this pattern extend well beyond just the immediate forecast period. The positioning of this ridge across the central United States and the associated flow pattern suggests that we could see a more active severe weather season beginning earlier than normal this year. Additionally, the suppression of winter storm activity across the southern tier means that areas still recovering from recent winter weather events will have time to continue restoration efforts without additional storm impacts. As we monitor the evolution of this pattern, the key factors to watch will be the exact positioning of the temperature boundary and how quickly it moves east. Small shifts in this boundary could mean the difference between severe weather and heavy snow for millions of people, particularly as we approach the Valentine's Day timeframe when model guidance suggests a significant storm system could develop.